It's now my pleasure to introduce an individual whose remarkable contributions will be recognized with an honorary Doctor of Letters degree. Michael Cooke is the longest-serving editor in the Toronto Star's recent history. His journalism career began at the age of 17, working as an apprentice newspaper reporter on Britain's Fleet Street, before immigrating to Toronto in the 1970s and landing a job on the copy desk of the Toronto Star. Under his leadership, the Star won the J.F. Jackman Award for Excellence in Journalism at the Canadian Journalism Foundation Awards. Mr. Cooke was known for incorporating the use of technology and social media into the paper's coverage of events, including the 2010 Toronto G20 Summit and the protests that accompanied it. In 2010, Mr. Cooke began a new story. He joined Journalists for Human Rights and is now serving as a board member of Canada's largest international media development organization that trains journalists to report on human rights and governance issues in their communities. Mr. Cooke has been traveling and teaching pro bono throughout Africa. He has also taught for other NGOs in Uganda, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. From abroad, he files stories, conducts journalism, needs assessments, and workshops about issues including the rights of the LGBTQ+ community. Mr. Cooke has also inspired a training program with media across Canada. Going forward, he will continue to help journalists prosper in the digital age and work with humanitarian projects and human rights reporting. Mr. Chancellor, I have the honor of presenting to you, for the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa, Michael Cooke. Congratulations, Dr. Cooke. It's now my pleasure to invite you to speak to Convocation.
Well, as you may have guessed, this is a very big deal for me. Can I pull this? Is the audio? Can I just take one out? Because I'm going to walk around a little bit. Does that still work? Is that okay? So this is a very big deal for me. I left school at 15 and I never went back in a classroom. So to get this kind of honor today, what you see is I'm actually levitating behind this podium. So it's really wonderful. Mr. Chancellor, Mr. President, faculty, graduates, congratulations. You've had a great amount of applause 2 minutes ago, but I just want to say hello and congratulations. I want to warm my hands on the pride coming from all the mums and dads and grandmas and granddads and brothers and sisters and family members who are watching on the internet abroad and are in this room today. So I got just a little bit of bad news. You think they're off the payroll, they're not, okay? Just saying. But let's give it up to the mums and dads. Yeah, come on now. I prepared two addresses today, one of 7 minutes and one of 24 minutes. So I thought what I'd do is I'd give you them both, and then later you can tell me which one you like the best. How does that? Okay, all right. Well, we'll go with the 7 minutes. Last summer I left the Star because I wanted to do something different, and I was certainly thrilled, and I'm thrilled to be into this new life. And I imagine you are. I'm going to maybe try and talk to the graduates. I imagine you are, and I'm thrilled, but I'm a little bit scared, and maybe you are too, because both feelings are important. Fear means that your eyes are open, and you're aware of the pitfalls ahead, and there's going to be some. You'll get a job in a secure field, but nothing in life is certain, nothing. In fact, everything in life is uncertain. Uncertainty is the defining characteristic of being alive. We think we know, you find out you don't know. We find success, it goes away. We can't find success, we lose hope, and then all of a sudden our dreams rush up and catch us unaware. and embrace us from behind. That's how life is. You can let it bother you, or you can see it for the opportunity it really is. For 50 years, I was attached to this newspaper or that newspaper, starting small, and ended running 3 of the biggest newspapers in North America. For 17 years, you've been at one school or another. And for the past 3 or 4 years, you've been at Trent. I hope I've got that number right. It's 3 years? Okay, I've been at Trent. And now you're what? Who are we? Well, I tell you, I am 67 years old. I know. Oh, surely, Michael, no more than 49. No, 67. Freshly expelled I was at 15, and I did what a person with no education and no prospect does. I showed up at a place, and I offered to work there at a weekly newspaper, a little tiny weekly newspaper in a little tiny town in northwest England. And I'm going to stress to you the value, I hope, of showing up. Showing up is half the battle. That weekly newspaper was not looking for another young hired hand. Try that. Not looking for another young hired hand with acne, 2 H's, 1 A. But there I was. There were always stories to write, always work to do. And I was there. I'd showed up. I was willing to work and work hard and not complain. And I worked for nothing for months. And then they decided to pay me. So if there's one thing I want to ask you and beg you, work hard, don't complain. But always in your job, always in your career, hold something back for yourself. Because I'm going to give you 3 pieces of advice today, 1 now and 2 towards the end. You know, first, you're not your job. You may feel like your job. You may do your job longer than you do anything else. Longer than you eat or sleep, longer than you play with your kids, longer than you kiss your spouse. But you're separate from your job. And your job has to be separate from you. That's healthy. You may do the job, but you never, ever become it. Jobs come and go, but you remain. Your family remains. So get married if you can. Have kids if you can. And long after you've left any particular job or career, your family will still be important. Maybe it won't work out. Maybe the job will fizzle. Maybe your marriage might fizzle. That doesn't mean your life has fizzled. Do the hard things. And do the easy things, please. What's an example of an easy thing? Show up for family dinner as often as you can and switch your phone off. That's all I ask. If you do one thing, please do that. And remember to pause sometimes and look around. And I think that's why I left journalism in the end. I wanted to pause and look around and take a deep breath after all those years and appreciate the world in which we find ourselves in now. And I've begun working for journalists with human rights in a modest way, traveling Africa and Asia, trying to bring, by my own definition, better journalism to those newspapers. It's an effort still, but it's also a big break for me as I try to step back and realize where I am. You, of course, will leave and you'll have the knowledge that you've acquired here and the friendships that you've made here and the loves that you've found here. And they will always be within you. They're not on your diploma. They're not written on your diploma. The person that you are, your confidence and your skill matter much more than those pieces of paper that you've worked so hard and sweated over to get. Your grades don't matter anymore. This matters. Your heart, your spirit. This matters. The knowledge that this university has given you. Your determination, your work ethic. Show up, work hard, don't complain. Never forget that, please. And someday, inshallah, you'll be like me. No more acne, with more life to look back on than to look forward to. And think about that today and decide what kind of class of 2068, if you were coming back and standing on this stage in front of this podium, what you'd tell that class of 2068. What would you say? Would you tell them about your job? I don't think so. Would you wave your tax returns from the podium? No, of course you wouldn't. You'll have a top hat of accomplishments given the place that you come from. I mean, look, I can write a story. I can blast out some soul music, horn shots on a saxophone, je parle français. I read poetry all the time. Mary Oliver, God rest her soul, is my guiding star. Check her out on Google if you don't know. Hundreds of stories that I'm proud to have been involved with and a few that I'm actually quite ashamed about. I've traveled the world. I've seen people. I've met people. A jet-lagged Margaret Thatcher once toppled fast asleep in my lap. For a while, when I was in New York, I knew Donald Trump, and he stole $60,000 from me. But, truly did. But I got off very lightly, given what that maniac is doing to our neighbors in the South. That was an easy. I've been blessed and touched by the Dalai Lama, and he laughed at my Toronto Maple Leafs joke. I feel that was a great moment in my life. I've chatted with Barack Obama while we were both in our underwear. And I'll give you the asterisk on that one. We shared a gym when I was in Chicago. But we did chat, and he was in his boxers. But I was never my job title, or tried really hard not to be. I was never my paycheck. And like you all, I think I possess, the one thing in the universe that matters. I possess life, I possess some intelligence, I possess hope. I certainly, at my age, possess gratitude and enthusiasm. So please keep your eyes open and please keep your heart open. And forgive your own mistakes, because those WTFs are going to happen and keep happening all the time. Forgive your own mistakes. And you might have to grip so hard on the carousel of life, that it goes around once. That cliche is true. You get one chance. It's going around once for you as it's going around once for me. Grip hard. Stay on. You get one ride. This is the only life, of course, that you'll ever have. I want to leave you, and this is going to take a few minutes, so it's not that quick. I want to leave you with two pieces of advice, examples from history. One for everyday use and one, I think, a bit more profound. As I've got older, I've studied the American presidents. The current one is in real time, right? But I studied the American presidents. And one of the things that Abraham Lincoln did during the American Civil War, every time the President Lincoln got news of a battle gone wrong, he'd fume about the general, and he'd whip out his pen and he'd dip his nib in the ink, and he'd write a scorcher of a letter, and then he'd sign it, and then he'd let the ink dry, and then he put the letter in a drawer, and after a good night's sleep, Lincoln would reread his letter in the morning and amend it, or not press send, not send it at all. And so I know you guys, and I think we're all in this room, but you guys have probably sent texts that you wish you hadn't sent. You're constant texting and emailing. I've sent angry texts. Don't. Just back off and wait 24 hours, because the protocol of texting is that you have to reply to the text before you've got the text that's been sent to you. Forget that. Wait 24 hours. It's the old advice from a president: let your anger settle down overnight. The president that didn't press send way back in the 1860s, the current president can't stop pressing send, right? There's something to learn from that. Anyway, it's really about being here and now and being in the moment. As I've talked about history, it's a little bit more history coming up, but it's really about being in the moment. Have you guys seen the movie Hotel Rwanda? Okay, well, for those who haven't seen it, you can find it on Netflix, and it's based on the Rwandan genocide of historians, 1994, and that our Canadian hero, General Romeo Dallaire, and his young Canadian soldiers, many of them your age, they tried to stop that genocide, led by General Dallaire. And they tried to stop it, but they couldn't, because of the bureaucratic paralysis of that very questionable organization in New York, the United Nations. At the time, it was a lot worse than it is now. But they couldn't stop that. That genocide. And 1 million people in Rwanda were slaughtered: men, women, children, the tiniest of children. And for me, 1994 was yesterday. But if you don't know, it's really worth looking into, because it's a lesson for humanity. One of the reasons I'm really glad that Al Gore invented the internet is that now you don't have to go to the library, you can get it on your phones. So that's good to know. But Dallaire was really hurt by that. Even though the bloodbath wasn't his fault, and even though he and his young Canadians tried their damn best to stop that slaughter, they couldn't. And Dallaire became guilt-ridden as a general. He came home. He'd seen the chopped up bodies, the men, the women, the children, the little children, the tiniest of children. He'd seen them chopped to pieces, literally, with machetes. He'd seen it. And he thought he could have stopped it, and he didn't, and he was very guilty. He felt guilty. He couldn't take it. He became a drug addict, a bad alcoholic, and later he tried to hang himself from a tree in an Ottawa park. Now we flash forward to today, June 2019, and I know Dallaire just a little bit, and he heads a foundation, a personal foundation, to get the guns out of the hands of all those child soldiers you see on the TV news, those 14-year-olds with acne waving around those AK-47s when they should be playing with their phones. And I said to the general, General, when do you think you'll succeed in getting those AK-47s out of the hands of those young kids, those young boys? You've been trying now for 4 or 5 years. And Dallaire replied, he said, I don't know, Michael. Probably not in my lifetime, but it will happen. We will get those machine guns out of the hands of those children sometime way in the future. And in the future, when the child soldiers are no more, when they're history, wouldn't it be nice to say, you were there at the beginning of that. You were there at the beginning of that. And Dallaire went on to say, and here's a soundbite, you can be on the right side of history in the present. You can be on the right side of history before history has happened. That's what he said, being on the right side of history in the present. Dallaire, by the way, today, this afternoon, he is on a beach in Normandy. This is the 75th anniversary of the Juno beach landings, which you may know better from watching Saving Private Ryan, I don't know. But the Canadians hit a beach, it was Juno Beach, and lots of young Canadians died on that beach. That's a little sidebar. General Dallaire's words were clear to me, and I hope they're clear to you. I leave them with you today as you begin your own personal history. Be on the right side of history before it's even happened. In other words, the general is saying, don't just make a living, make a mark. Thank you for listening.